I am very, very excited to interview my next guest who has saved our family many, many times when I was about to lose my sanity. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist for 15 years. Her background is impressive. She's worked at nonprofit agencies serving families who were involved in domestic violence and child protective services. She also worked as a behavioral health specialist providing therapy for teens at a high school. So you can imagine how difficult and challenging that must have been. She's been in private practice for 9 years, a mother of a kindergartner and a stepmom of a teenager. So you have a full plate. And we were just talking right before we started this interview, and I would love to hear your thoughts on how parents can keep their sanity without losing it and saying things that might,
Mm,
what you said, chip away at our kids' self-esteem. How do we
mm.
stop those words from coming out?
Well, I mean, I think it has to start with, are you taking care of yourself? So, are you taking that time to really invest in your own self care? Because we are living in different times right now, especially.
Mhm.
And a lot of it is, figuring all that out and, handling our kids being at home and they're not maybe not even being satisfied with how the distance learning is going. And so that can be another increase in stressors. So remembering to take a little bit of time for yourself if possible, even if it means a 15-minute cat nap. It doesn't
Mhm.
always have to be something lavish. It can be just, am I eating right? Am I taking time for myself, when I can? And I think if we want to have influence over our kids, we have to work at building a relationship with them. And it's not saying that there isn't a relationship at all, but I think when we're so busy with the day to day
Mhm.
and trying to, have all of our ducks in a row and make sure everything's going well, we might forget to spend that extra quality time, with your kid, and especially a teenager who may not even want mom or dad around. But I think it's, are you eating dinner together or some type of meal together? Are you taking time, to have those little talks, like check in with them, like how are you doing? How are things going, with this distance learning? Because the kids are also going through a lot of changes and adjustments as well. This isn't normal for them either. So if we as adults have a hard time with this transition, kids are also having a harder time. They're just expressing it maybe in different ways. So I think it's important to check in.
What's
Yeah.
your suggestion on how to react when you see those 18 missing assignments or your child logs on and then leaves conveniently for 30 minutes? Then the parents get a
Oh,
call. I know a lot of my parents are saying
that's
they logged
hard.
on, but they're not there,
They're
or
not. Oh,
they
they're not
just don't.
showing their.
They're not showing up. Their cameras off, or they just take a shower and then they come back. And so when the teacher calls on them, they're not there.
They're not there. Oh, okay. Well, that's a tough one. Especially if you're not at home and you're
Right.
relying
Some of the
on
parents are
them to be
working, but
responsible.
right. So I guess the
Yeah.
bottom line is, how do we respond without reacting with frustration? Because the average person or mom or dad,
Hmm.
as soon as you
Oh
find
yeah.
out
Sure.
what you
Like
just
what the heck's
failed
happening?
or
Yeah.
you didn't do
Yeah.
your homework,
Yeah.
what do you think?
I mean, I think that goes back to, taking that deep breath because I know our reaction is, what is happening? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you taking this seriously? I think that's normal for us to have that initial response, but to kind of take a step back, okay, this is different. If they were in school, this probably wouldn't be happening. They would be in class. They wouldn't be walking around campus or at home taking a shower. They
Mm-hmm.
would be in class, right? So I think it's talking to them, like what is happening? What is it? Maybe it's the class. Um, maybe they're having struggle concentrating and they don't want to tell you. It could be a number of reasons. So I guess I try to find out what maybe if there are underlying reasons, that maybe they're just having a hard time, and that if they are, or you find out what the issue is, the problem is, address it, right? You
Oh no,
can
you
either
just okay.
talk
Locked
with
out.
your student, talk
Mm-hmm.
with your kid, or talk with, maybe you may have to have a meeting with the teacher and your child, and or facilitate that and have your child, especially if they're older, like teenagers, you want them to kind of take some responsibility, right, in their education, kind of guide them, because if they're going to, be in the workforce later or be in college, they have to know how to advocate for themselves. So I think helping them, guiding them with that process, if they haven't done that before, reaching out to the teacher, making some type of contact. The teachers have office hours,
Mm-hmm.
they're available, and they want the kids to succeed.
What I
Mhm.
hear though often is I thought it was just during distance learning. What happens if
Mm.
it's been like this since elementary school and now the teenagers in high school
Mm.
and it's been an
Mm.
ongoing, maybe they're just not into academics. They don't see the value of it. They don't want to. I have had some students who say this is just
Mhm.
stupid and I'm not going to do it because why? I'm
Yeah.
never going to be able to use, whatever it is.
Mm.
So I mean, I
Like
try to say that
algebra, something like
algebra,
that.
someone didn't want to make his catapult out of popsicle sticks, which was worth a lot because you
Right.
had to build it,
Okay.
plan it, do a test on
Oh,
it,
okay.
reflection. And so when
Yeah.
you have 5 assignments based on something that you don't see value in it, is there
Mm,
something
yeah.
that parents
Say,
can
like
say or
to,
maybe accept? I mean, what do you do?
I mean, there might have to be some acceptance that there, there might have to be some acceptance and letting go, right? Because there's going to have to be some natural consequences, especially if they're in high school and, this has been going on for a while. Um, whether it's repeating the grade, going to summer school, going to, maybe a study hall, that there should be, right, those natural consequences so that they can take ownership of their education. Um, but the other thought is, I think if you can catch it early, like if it's in the earlier years,
Mm-hmm.
and you think, okay, something's not quite right, I would consider like meeting with the teachers, maybe having them observed. Maybe there is an issue that we don't know. It could be a learning disability. It could be that maybe the work is too easy and they're bored in
Well, that's what
class.
we were thinking. Yeah, just to
That
because he's
they
building a
could,
computer. One of the students is building a computer. He likes to cook, but he
yeah,
just isn't into academics. But
yeah,
how do parents, I know you tried to help me. If she fails, she repeats the grade,
uh,
she repeats
yeah,
the class. And a lot of my parents, right, they're saying, no, no, no,
yeah,
no. I mean, I've been
yeah,
telling him, but he's not taking it seriously. I'm telling him, you know what?
right.
You've been failing the first semester of high school,
Hmm.
you're going to have to repeat. Do you understand that? And they're very nonchalant. I mean,
Yeah.
how do we accept
Well,
that?
and then you make sure that, well, I think one, it's looking at how we're thinking about it. Like, what is the story we're telling ourselves?
Yes.
Is it, if they don't pass, I'm a failure as a parent? Because that's not necessarily true, right? We have to look at that thought and go, okay, where is the evidence to support that?
Hmm. Hmm.
Is it really my fault that he's failing? That's, it's more than likely not inaccurate belief, right? So, not, and this is easier said than done, but not looking at it as a reflection on you as a parent, but knowing that you are saying, hey, if you keep this up, you're going to have to repeat. Make sure that they repeat it, right?
Make sure that they
Like if they,
repeat it. Right.
yeah, like that they do go to summer school, even if they say, I don't want to go, to heck with that. I think it's enforcing that, like, no, this is what happens, right? When you get a job, there's going to be some things you don't want to do at your job. For
Hmm.
example, there's some tasks that you're going to think, I don't even know why this is important, but we
Right.
have to do it because that's what's expected of us, right? It's, so I think it's instilling that maybe at a young age, and even when they're older,
Yeah. I think that the teenage years,
reminding them of that.
sometimes they're
It can
more
be challenging,
rebellious
yeah.
or they just don't want to
Yeah,
do
they want
it.
their independence. Yeah. Yeah, they want to have some control, right? If this is an
Hmm.
area
Hmm.
that they can control, then I think it's a part of it is being a teenager. So the other aspect of it is looking at what is developmentally appropriate. Like, is rebelling within the
Reason,
confines of safety? Yeah.
as long as you're not
Right.
harming you.
Within reason, yeah. um is this developmentally appropriate? That they don't really want to talk to you, that they're think that they know that this they think they know is this isn't going to be needed in my future, and da da da. That some of that kickback is expected, right? But it's, again, if you want to be able to influence them and
Hmm.
guide them, it is building that relationship, right? We can't just lecture, 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 scold, 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 and not have a relationship,
So will that, I mean,
taking
when you
that
said chipping
time.
up at their self-esteem, is that what happens when
Mhm.
parents keep, scolding, lecturing? We think it's motivating. We think it's going to
Yeah, we
knock
think
some
it's
sense into
motivating.
them, but what is it really
Yeah,
doing?
but I think it's reinforcing I can't do it. Like, if you're
Right.
saying you're never gonna amount to anything, or you're gonna, you know, you're gonna you're never gonna be I had somebody say, you're never going to be rich, or you're never going to be, own a home if you keep acting, being like this. You're never going to have a good paying job. They're taking it like, oh, well, if my own parent thinks this, then it must be true, right?
Hmm.
Especially if it's something that's being said over and over and over again. The one person who should be your cheerleader should be your parent. The one person praising you should be your parent, and really trying to encourage you. Granted, it's going to come with some lessons, right? Like, we do have to be firm and have boundaries and structure
Hmm.
and all of that. It's all necessary. But at the same time, we can do that and still praise and encourage and uplift, you know, so
So
that we
instead of
can boost
saying,
them up.
when a parent's really frustrated and you really want to say those things that'll probably
Mm.
destroy their self-esteem.
Right.
So we pause. What are words that we can just remember to say instead of how many times do I have to tell you, or what are you doing, with your life?
You know, I think acknowledging that this is hard for you as the parent, and saying, man, I really feel helpless. I don't know how to help you through this. Is that how you're feeling right now? How, like, maybe trying to relate in some way. That if I feel frustrated, I can imagine maybe you might be feeling a little frustrated and lost,
Hmm.
and see what they say. And they might be like, no, da, 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 and I don't want to talk to you. But, you never know if you're planting little seeds that they're going to come and talk to you, right? You might see some changes if you can try to relate in that way, right? Or even if you make the mistake and you are so, filled with emotion, and you do say those things that later on you think, oh, I shouldn't have said that. You can always go back and say, I shouldn't have reacted that way. I made a mistake, and I shouldn't have said A, B, or C. And, but I get really frustrated, and I get worried for you when
Hmm.
I see
Hmm.
that you don't even care about your work, and your grades, and I want you to care because it is important, you know.
And that way you're not
Mhm.
judging. I think, is that what they hear? They hear a lot of
Yeah,
judgment.
yeah, yeah. A lot of judgment, and kids, adolescence is such a tough time. Um, and it is, if you think back to our own when we were teenagers, you have the whole hormones all over, and
Hmm.
you're trying to figure out who you are, and all of that stuff. And then you have grades and teachers and
And
work that you
parents.
don't really want to, and parents, yeah, and younger or older siblings. I mean, and then you're staying at home. This isn't the normal way of learning, right? This isn't, especially if they're in high school, they're not used to
When there's
this
no escape,
environment.
right? You can't, you're just in there, you're in your room. You can do
Mhm.
some social media or
Play
watch
games.
shows, but there's no
Yeah.
connection with a human
Yeah.
being in person.
Yeah. Yeah. That's hard.
What
Yeah.
do you think
And
is
they
one of
need that social.
the social, what do you think is one of the tips that they can, parents can help with their teens when they don't know how to get their teens to talk to them? we can end with that
Hmm.
words of wisdom, because I think sometimes we don't
Um,
know, when they're just
how
closed
to
off.
get them to talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Um, I think it's maybe because it's going to be rough, right? If, especially if they're completely closed off, it's going to be a bit of a challenge, I would think, to get your teen to talk to you. And sometimes they're more willing to talk, or their guard goes down when you're doing something together. So it might be eating, no screen time, nothing at your table that's going to be a distraction. It could be creating maybe a new ritual of sorts, like, what are two good things that happened today? What are one thing that you think could have been better? To get, even if it's a one word answer, it's still something. And then, or you could even say, okay, we're all going to share, but no less than 3 words. Like we have to,
Right. So it's
finish a
not
full
just,
sentence.
I don't know,
One worded.
or
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah. And yeah, yeah. So even if it's taking a drive around the island, I know we're
Mm.
limited maybe with what we can do, but that one-on-one time, where there's no distractions, and again, no lectures, because I think they're so, they're going to tune you out if they think you're going to lecture them, you know.
So
But
maybe approach
finding
it
out
with,
about them taking an interest in what they're doing, even if it's like the video game that you have no clue about, or you're not interested in because you're not a video gamer. um,
right,
but maybe having taking an interest, you know
showing that you're curious
in
and that
what
you
they're
care.
doing. Yeah, that it's not just about education. I mean, whereas that's very important, but that taking an interest in them as people, I think that's important.
I think that's what we're missing. I think we're so into
Yeah,
the end goal. We need them to pass. We
yeah,
need the
we kind of
grades. We need
forget.
the assignments done.
Yeah,
And then we forget, oh, that's right. I should
yeah.
emotionally
I should
connect with
emotionally
my,
connect every once in a while. Yeah.
yeah, it's just too much trouble. I don't have
Oh,
time for that.
yeah, it's hard. It's hard. We're juggling a lot. And so being patient with yourself, giving yourself grace as parents, we're not perfect in this. We're, and surrounding yourself with other parents, that you guys can talk to and, relate with, and, so you don't feel so alone in the whole parenting aspect, you know.
But that's what you do for me. Carla,
I'm glad.
no, you're really busy, but I really want to thank you for sharing your time, sharing your
Oh, thank
experience, and
you.
just helping parents keep their sanity, because sometimes, like you said, it's okay to give ourselves permission. And like you mentioned, the first thing is self-care, because if we don't take care of
Yeah.
ourselves, then we're operating
Yeah.
right on an empty tank.
Yeah. 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 Definitely. Yeah.
Well,
Thank you for
thanks,
having me.
Carla. I really appreciate it. Take care. Have a great
Yes.
day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Bye.